China, the world's factory that manufactures everything from smartphones to ventilators and face masks, has a new challenge these days. Countries and global think tanks have already pressed the alarm button over the probability of Chinese money buying sick companies for a pittance. In India, the People's Bank of China raising stake in domestic HDFC Bank has been a wake up call. But is the Chinese money just a narrative? Should India be worried? And how will India's FDIs fare in the short run? While FDI involves purchasing businesses and related infrastructure, foreign portfolio investment refers to purchasing financial instruments such as stocks or bonds. The People's Bank of China's stake in HDFC Bank came via an FPI route. Market regulator SEBI is working to make rules stricter for FPIs from foreign countries. However, the latest scare only gets amplified when one looks at the startup funding angle. Gateway House, a think tank, in its report observed 18 of the top 30 unicorns or billion-dollar Indian startups having a China funding. The total investment is nearly $4 billion. With this premise, Raj Ramchandran of J. Sagar and Associates answers a few queries on the concept of FDI and stonewalling opportunistic takeovers.
A good reference point would be the World Investment Report of 2019 released by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, where India has been ranked among the top 10 host economies for FDI. Even as recent as December 2019, as per the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, which is the DPIIT, despite a slowdown in the global economy, inflows of foreign investment into India had not been impacted. However, given the COVID-19 situation which has impacted the global economy, the net effect of the same on India remains to be seen. While growth in some sectors like airline and travel may be affected or lower, some sectors may also have a positive impact, like sectors of healthcare, fintech, technology, insurance, e-commerce, etc. Additionally, there is a good likelihood of several manufacturing facilities being moved to India from other developed and developing countries, considering India to be a more stable and sustainable economy in the long run. Risks typically in investments of FDI would be in terms of fluctuation in exchange rates, economic instability, legal changes from time to time. A key risk that investors always consider would be changes in the policy framework having retrospective effect or affecting existing investments. Although in the recent past, almost all policy changes have been to boost and encourage investments, it is important to continue the theme and to provide the necessary comfort to investors that there will not be any policy changes that could affect them adversely. For the first time, the European Commission has urged its member states to be particularly vigilant and avoid the current health crisis resulting in a sell-off of Europe's key businesses and industries, including SMEs. Italy, Spain, Germany, Australia all have announced amendments to their respective foreign investment laws to curb acquisitions by non-residents. Some of these countries have in fact widened the list of sectors where government approval is required as a prerequisite for foreign investment in those sectors. Even India has recently revised its FDI policy, making it mandatory for all foreign investments from countries with which India shares a land border with to seek prior government approval for any FDI. The intention here is to curb opportunistic takeovers or acquisitions of Indian companies due to the current COVID-19 pandemic. The general theme, if we notice, in all FDI changes across economies and countries is to provide the necessary boost to specific sectors in their countries, like manufacturing, creating employment opportunities, encouraging corporates to set up businesses in their home jurisdictions, less reliance on other economies, especially for essential products and services, and the current scenario to protect from any opportunistic takeovers or acquisitions. Although India is currently concerned about opportunistic takeovers, India has never seen China as one of the key sources of investment funds, with that being only at 0.8% from the recent report that has been shared with us. Do we see still that as a risk? Is it safer to say that Chinese investments won't reach us via other countries? As per the DIPP website, the top 10 investing countries in India during the period of 17 to 18 does not include China. That said, several investments in emerging sectors have been made by foreign investments coming from several jurisdictions including China. One important aspect to bear in mind is that the FDI source data is typically collated based on jurisdiction from where the investment is made and not that of the beneficial owner of the investment funds. The current change to the Indian FDI policy, incorporating protective measures for investments from neighboring countries, is with a simple intent to curb opportunistic takeovers or acquisitions of India entities. It is likely that the Indian government has perceived a risk, as have several other countries, and hence a clear policy to that effect, which covers not only direct investments but also indirect and secondary investment transactions. Funds from specified countries are unlikely, therefore, to be able to come to India given the intent of the current policy. By misdirection, investors will be keen to obtain confirmations before they invest funds into India and obtain the necessary comfort. It is also expected that the government will in due course provide necessary clarity insofar as existing investors and investments are concerned. What is the status of India's policy on tax-free havens? Has the Indian government managed to plug these tax-free investment havens? Is that a bit of concern? Yes, it is. Tax treaties have always been used amongst corporations who invest across countries and continents to their advantage. In fact, in 2016, India renegotiated the tax treaty with Mauritius and had since amended the DTAA. Accordingly, from 2017 April 1, any shares that have been acquired in an Indian company will be subject to the new rules. There was, however, for prior investments made, that is investments made prior to April 1, 2017, those were grandfathered, and as a secondary measure, protection was also granted in the form of a transitional period from April 1, 2017 to March 31, 2019. Similar provisions also apply in the DTA, are contained and apply for investments from Singapore. Another key aspect is the place of effective management. Prior to the introduction of the place of effective management, a company was said to be resident in India in the previous year if it was an Indian company. The control and management of its affairs was situated in India. The new change, it will now be deemed as an Indian company and an Indian resident, and the global income of such company will be taxable in India. Another important concept which has now come into effect is GAR, General Anti-Avoidance Rules. GAR is a concept generally empowers the revenue authorities in a country to deny a tax benefit of transactions or arrangements without having any commercial substance. The courts, however, have consistently affirmed the cardinal principle that if a document or a transaction was genuine, they would not ordinarily disregard those documents or go behind the existing structures. However, if courts find a transaction to be colorable or dubious, they would be inclined to disregard these structures or transactions by applying the necessary doctrines, including piercing of the corporate wheel, and the whole theory behind these changes are to emphasize on substance over form. Is there any talk on tweaking repatriation laws as well, especially the US tax changes in 2017 and 2018, which were responsible for lower FDI inflows in the world? And what is it that we foresee as the global FDI numbers in the coming years? Yes, there were several changes in the US laws which allowed companies to repatriate their foreign earnings at a reduced rate of tax, and this encouraged several foreign corporates to repatriate their earnings to the US and not have them accumulated in foreign shows in subsidiaries or WOS. Where investment income is subject to more taxes or costs, it does have an impact on the quantum of investment as well as their feasibility. Recently, India has abolished the dividend distribution tax, and therefore dividends will now be taxed in the hands of the recipient stakeholder, which could even be higher in certain cases than the original applicable rate of DDT. According to the report of the Economic Cooperation and Development Board, the global FDI flows have decreased by 27% in 2018, and this was a decrease from 16% in 2017. Although this decrease is likely to continue in the current year as well, especially prompted by the pandemic now, it is likely that there will be FDI flows into specific sectors which are likely to do well. As far as India is concerned, the recent corporate tax reduction should have ideally, not having this pandemic situation, be resulting in a higher competitive investment destination, because one of the key factors due to which India was not considered as an investment destination was the higher corporate tax rates, which have now been reduced after the new Finance Act has come into force. As we see it, global FDI numbers are likely to undergo some change, and the overall effect the pandemic has had on several economies and investments. It is but likely that a large amount of FDI will be directed towards sectors which are likely to do well across economies. Bhutan has received a significant higher share of inflows coming from India. Are they likely to get affected? The answer is no. Investments by an Indian company in an offshore entity is governed by ODI regulations. As per the ODI regulations, there are certain restrictions on investment in Nepal and Pakistan. In other jurisdictions, Indian parties can invest up to 400% of the net worth for any bona fide activity. The restricted activities for setting up investments and businesses outside India are real estate with certain exceptions, in the financial services sector with certain approvals and compliances, and therefore subject to these compliances, investments will continue in these sectors and businesses which are likely to do well, and subject to the local laws, of course, governing FDI into Bhutan. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope this has been useful to you.